prologue came about for a number of different reasons, really. I mean, first of all, this storyline has a lot to do with 47's past, and I think it sort of foreshadows that. We wanted to put people in the right mood, so
Absolutely.
to speak. And then there's introducing their relationship and their long professional career for new players. I think it does so very nicely. And then of course there's the practical reasons about gameplay and tutorials. Tutorials can be notoriously awkward, especially with 47. If you say this is the world's top assassin at the prime of his career, and then he has to do basic training, it just feels odd, right?
Oh, I completely agree.
And setting it in the past, it gets us past that in a way. We can justify the training elements much better.
And as you said, I think it does foreshadow one of the themes of what we're doing, right? Because we said that in the present day of the storyline, Agent 47 and Diana are they are at the pinnacle, right? They are very good at what they do, and then it becomes really interesting to describe some of the journey that took them there, and some of the I would say some of the events that shaped them. And then it felt natural, right? That we say, okay, but if there is this time period where 47 has escaped the asylum, and we know that 1 year later he shows up in Hong Kong and he's working for the ICA, what is that about? That became really an interesting topic, as you said, both because it can do something with the characters, we can get a good meeting there, and also because it allows us to evaluate the player and Agent 47 in a credible sort of fiction, where you don't go like, but isn't he supposed to know all these things? But you are actually training and being evaluated by the ICA.
And I think we even discovered stuff along the way, like for instance how the mini story arc of the beta actually explains how they developed their unique style with the accidents and the disguises and all that, which feels rather nice.
Yeah, I love the part where when you take a disguise in the very first part of the
her
training,
reaction.
Diana goes like, you took out his clothes.
That's a first.
That's a first. And describing it's such a good way of describing the two. And Diana is obviously fascinated with this. Also, the first of all, obviously, because 47 is really good at what he does, but she can't really resist this whole the mystery, right? They can't really figure out where he came from, even if they try. That's I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And something we can't really wait to tell more about. I think is in the sort of in the overarching story.
Yeah, so the chronology probably requires a bit of an explanation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The game actually takes place in 2019.
Yeah.
It's sort of the eternal 5 years from now, I guess.
Yes.
And the prologue takes place 20 years before that.
Yeah.
When did the other games take place? We don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. We know we have all the work from the previous games. We have a lot of events and a lot of things that have happened. But we also want it to be, as you said, in the eternal 5 years from now, because it allows us to open up for thinking about contemporary society, what's actually going on with both technology, politics, in this effort to make the game feel like it's contemporary. And then we actually say the events of the previous games have happened. We actually embrace them and we want to work with them. But as we've done, and I think some fans have been debating back and forth about what's actually going on, we say that that's our present day, 2019. It's going to be 2020 soon. Yeah. And then we say 20 years prior to that, which is roughly on the timeline of Codename 47. That's where you did your first training. But who knows? We might even go beyond that. We might travel a little further back in time as well, which should also be interesting. And all of this is obviously because I think for a big sort of franchise like Hitman to be continuously relevant, we need to sort of break the bonds a little bit. We need to be free to sort of articulate who is 47 for the series to come. It's a few seasons, and also in terms of what does he look like, what does he feel like. We really spend a lot of time just thinking about how to make him feel like he's in his prime. He's elegant, sophisticated, he's powerful. Much like I think Absolution's interpretation of him is actually it took sort of a different extreme, where he was, especially if you look at some of the trailers, he was very scarred and very sort of physically mangled almost, and very, very down and out. And that was super important for that game because it needed to portray him like that. But I think the journey from Blood Money to Absolution also took some freedoms, and we've been doing that. And our freedom this time is to say, he's in his prime in this everlasting 5 years from now.
Absolution was true to its genre, and we're true to ours, and that's why he looks different. There's really not much more to it than that.
And we need him at his peak, right? We need to travel the world. We have so many places to visit.
And as you said, we of course acknowledge the major beats of the old games and the past events. That doesn't mean we have to acknowledge every single little detail that happened. So it's very much it's the broad strokes, right?
And I think also when we did the Legacy opening cinematic, we reinterpreted some of the classic hits, if you will. Let's say we changed a little bit in some of the sort of the settings, or we reimagined them, I would say. And I think people are up for that. I think people have a really sort of strong connection to what happened in the previous games, and I think we need to be sort of within the spirit of that very closely. But I also think the Legacy opening cinematic was just that, an example of how cool the events of the previous games are, especially if you're not afraid to look at them with a more contemporary eye and actually try to give them a touch of what we can do today. And I know, I mean, we've been debating the sort of the storyline of the entire franchise quite a bit, and some things are that there are obviously some story elements where you can go, hey, how does that fit into this and all that, and debate it. And I think there we allow ourselves to say, hey, there are some things that are just facts. I mean, 47 was created by Ortmeyer, we know that. And the different games unfolded like they did, but we might add a little nuance to some places where it makes sense.
It's really the auteur approach in films. Like, if you take a franchise like Alien, they are all very different for that simple reason that the director changed. He's got a different vision, but it's still a continuous chronology. It's not like a reboot every time, but they feel very different, and the tone is different, they look different. Same with Mission Impossible, I think.
Same with James Bond. So many examples. Sherlock Holmes. The list goes on, basically. But I can see obviously why people are asking questions about how does everything fit. But I hope this at least helps explain it.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So I guess the question is, will Mr. X or Agent Smith return to the series?
Well,
What do you think, Michael? It's spoiler territory.
It's not impossible.
No, I wouldn't rule it out at all.